Okay, party people. The phone says I'm live, so I'm live. So I await your arrival. Here's one. Hello there. Farjeet, hello. Hey, y'all. Thanks for coming. Yes, you are live. Thank you. So glad that's confirmed. Technology works. Let's have a few other people join in. Hi, James. Good to see you. Kia, hello. Let's see who else we got coming in here. Hello, indeed. So let's do this. There we go. It
Hi,
works.
it works. Let me turn it
So
off.
there we go. So as people are trickling in, just a little preamble here. My name is Chris Kapika. I'm the Dean Chief Academic Officer here at California College of Music. And thanks to everybody who's tuning in. Thanks for stopping by on your Wednesday, I guess, afternoon for us, evening for some, you know, wherever you are. Thanks for coming in. As a reminder, we're doing this every Wednesday at this time. So we're going to have different guests on every week. We'll be, talking shop about, uh, what my guests do professionally. Maybe some get a little bit in the weeds, get a little abstract sometimes. Maybe we'll sing, perform a little bit. We'll break down some tunes. We'll answer your questions. It's going to be a real heck of a time, as they say. So feel free to tune in. Every Wednesday we'll be doing this. So with me today is the newest member of our faculty. She fashions herself as a singer-songwriter, which I will be asking about in a bit. She's been active in the LA scene for a little while now. She's got a project that's blending all kinds of interesting stylistic influences. Neo soul, R&B, pop. Maybe a little hip hop here and there. She's been kind of making inroads as a songwriter, collaborating on, title tracks for TV shows on Netflix, things like a show called Fearless, which is an animated show. She has some new ones coming out, shows called The Madams Dollar Sign, another one called The Walkers, a lot of kind of title themes that she's working on. She's, award-winning songwriter. She won NAMM's President's Innovation Award recently. Placed very highly, or was a finalist in many others, like International Songwriting Competition, Unsigned Only. These are some pretty prestigious songwriting competitions. She got her bachelor's in the Netherlands, where she's from, in vocal performance. And she studied songwriting a little bit out here at Cornell School of Music, and recently got her master's in commercial music performance at Cal State LA. So with me today is none other than Kia Knoester. Welcome, Kia.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure.
It's very exciting.
So before I kind of jump in, I do want to sort of ask about how you arrived at the singer-songwriter distinction. I'm sure you get asked this a lot, so maybe just hearing it from in your words, what that means to you.
I would say writing songs that come from the soul. So I wouldn't say like as in genre. I mean, obviously I have some influences from soul music, but this would translate more into me as a writer that, writes from the heart, writes from everything that is here.
Everything that's here,
That's
and we get that's certainly something we can relate to. So you have your hat in a bunch of different rings, and so I kind of want to just go through, different aspects of what you're doing professionally, and kind of get your thoughts on, you know, singing since you're a trained singer, songwriting since you're, an active professional songwriter working in media, especially, and for your own project, and getting talking about collaboration, because you tend to write a lot of songs with other people, which bears great fruit. Maybe talking about yourself as an artist, how you've kind of come to your, both sonic, visual, strategy, aesthetics, things like this. So let's just kind of get to it then. So
yeah.
you're a trained singer, a lot of your degrees are in vocal performance.
Mhm.
So you've had the chance to work with a lot of pedagogues and study a lot of aspects of producing sound uh, with the human voice. So I guess to you, what kind of exemplifies a great vocal performance or a great singer? What are things that, like, let's say, you look for in singers that you're teaching or coaching? What are aspects of other artists that you value in their voice? Talk to me about your kind of philosophy on kind of great singing.
Right. So I think a great singer has multiple things. It comes down to having great body control. It's not, you're not just using this little part of your body. It's so much more to it. I feel like a great singer or a great vocalist needs to have good ears. I think that's very important for intonation wise, but also being able to work together with other people. If you're on stage, with a band, you're able to hear what the bass is doing, you're able to hear what the drums is doing, so you can connect to that. And oh, oops, my camera. It's not supposed to fall down. um, Another thing would be originality, authenticity. I think that is something that grows upon you. If you want to be something that you're not, that will always show. That's what I feel like. Another thing would be great microphone technique and knowing how to work an audience or a crowd, or in this case, when we're doing camera work, how to work a camera. So I think all those aspects, they kind of form a great entertainer, a great vocalist, a great singer.
So I want to touch on a few of those things that you mentioned. You mentioned mic technique, which especially nowadays, since we're a popular music institution, we focus primarily on like recorded media a
Right.
lot, as opposed to something like opera, which it's, no amplification. You're kind of just in the hall, so does, let's say, microphone technique change dramatically if you're in the studio versus playing a club in front of 300 people versus playing the 10,000 seat opener? What are maybe
For
some
sure.
things different?
A microphone, if you're playing in front of an audience or you're playing a live gig, your microphone kind of has to be an extension of yourself. So it has to move naturally, just as the other hand that doesn't wear the mic is moving. So in a studio, obviously you can't hold a condensed microphone like this, because
Bad.
that
You'll get
wouldn't
kicked out
work.
of the studio very quickly. Don't do that.
Right, don't do that. So you have to kind of find more of an internal sense, I would say, in order to bring that performance into your microphone. So that's just a complete different mindset and a complete different intention. Wearing a microphone with two hands like this on stage also has a very interesting effect. Some say it could look uncomfortable or unnatural, but at certain moments, I feel like if you're really having a vulnerable moment, then this could actually be super effective. So there are a lot of different opinions about it, but yeah, main thing would be for live performance, it has to be an extension of yourself, and that's something that has to grow upon you because we're not used to walking around with something here. So that's just practice and experience, and yeah, I would say that would be it, those two big differences.
You brought up authenticity, which I think, is valued more so by younger generations now than it ever has been ever, as a, all you have to do is look to social media to kind of see this in action. So authenticity artistically is something that's pretty hard to do, I would argue. Not only does it require intense, training and foundational skills to kind of get to a point where you can professionally articulate musical ideas, but it's also differentiating yourself from things that have come before, balancing that with understanding idioms and styles and things like this. So as somebody who's kind of gone through this process of artistic self-discovery, for your own project and figuring out kind of what it is that you want to say as an artist, when you're talking about singing specifically,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trying to get people to arrive at a point, ideally, of having a unique something je ne sais quoi to offer as a singer. What does that process look like, or what did it look like for you? Did it look like, let's say, emulating recordings verbatim in your studies? Was it about taking the big picture concepts and then trying to do your own thing? Like, what's the balance between those things? How would you talk about that?
I think emulating other artists is always a good thing. I think we all do that. Like we all trying to find our own voices, but at the same time, we're all emulating other artists because there were so many great people before us. Like, why not? Why should we not? It's actually, I think, really good, and it'll make you understand what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So I felt like when I was younger, and it took me a long time to really kind of develop my own sound, my own voice in that. So I tried a gazillion styles and genres. I sang rock music for a while, I sang funk music for a while, jazz, really dove into that, new soul. And you know what you do is you take all those techniques and those different riffs and runs and hand gestures and whatnot. You put it in a bag, and then you have to wear it like it's your own. I feel like that would help out of finding your own trademark, basically.
I find it interesting what you say about hand gestures and things being attributed to certain types of styles or the energy of certain types of music. Would you say that kind of developing your own voice requires not just the sort of pure sort of beauty of sound, but it also requires some sort of physical
Oh
work,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, like, we had a class yesterday with vocal performance workshop, where we kind of went into this a little bit of physical movements. We looked at a couple of videos back in the 60s, 70s, and people, when they had like a TV show and performing, their hands were almost not moving, or their body was for sure not moving. Maybe only their hands were moving a little bit here and there, but that was it. As you look into like 90s or 2000s, especially now, people are moving so freely and all over the stage. And um, that definitely comes with, I guess, style and character.
So something else that you had alluded to was, emulating artists and things. Who are some of the artists that you tried to tackle specifically? You said you've sung a bunch of different styles of music. Any particular people resonate with you, or that you still kind of hold dear in informing your own sound?
I think the artist that I have mad respect for would be Jessie J. I think she is an amazing vocalist
She's a
and
good songwriter
performer
too.
and a great songwriter. Um, Liana La Havas, I don't know if you know
Hmm.
her. She's a UK
Sure.
artist. NAO, her, those like more modern types. Go a little bit back, Beyonce. I mean, she's still in the game, but she's definitely like a huge artist, who has this underneath. Whitney Houston, going back, Aretha Franklin's soul, and if you're really going to like jazz, I would say Ella Fitzgerald, Billie Holiday, Dinah Washington. Like those are definitely people that I looked up
I've
to,
heard of
and
them.
you heard of them, yeah. so so that's where I got my package from, my backpack, I would say.
Yeah, and I'm always kind of curious about what people are listening to now in terms of kind of evolving their sound. You mentioned some modern artists like Leanne LaHavis. We've
Mhm.
played some Leanne LaHavis tunes here in our ensembles and things like
Oh,
this.
cool.
There's a lot of great stuff out there. So I guess how is it that, let's say, maybe you're discovering new voices? How are you kind of doing your homework, so to speak, on repertoire to sort of inform your singing?
Most of it comes from Spotify, social media. I feel like when I go on Spotify, I don't always have the time to actively find new artists. So what I really like about the Spotify is that they create like a list of artists that are similar to artists that you listen to. So I discover new artists from there sometimes. Um, Facebook, Instagram, sometimes a sponsor shows up and it just grabs my attention. I'm like, oh, let me find out what that is. Or, if you look at movies or TV shows and you hear a song, I would open my Shazam and be like, oh, who is this? I gotta find it out. Yeah, I guess that would be it. But you kind of, if you want to be a singer, I feel like that is something that has to come kind of naturally. You need to have that curiosity. You need to have that interest, if you want to get better.
Absolutely. And we're going to dive more into social media kind of further on in the discussion. But, in this sort of discovery phase of finding your voice and everything, of course, there's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be sort of plateaus and, the sort of mental gymnastics you have to go through in the self-improvement process. What are some kind of common vocal specific pitfalls that you find that befall young singers, people who are going through that process that you've gone through? What are maybe some common threads or some common, I don't want to say mistakes, per se, but, some kind of things to think about, big picture concepts to focus on as you're sort of developing your vocal instrument?
Right. I feel like most newer singers or younger singers, they always have a lack of breath support. And it makes sense because, breath support is not something that we do with in our natural habitat. We try to control our diaphragm to move up or to move up slower in order to be able to finish the sentence with more power. And we're breathing consciously at certain spots. So this is not something that you can just do overnight. It's something that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of practice. If I have to think back of me getting introduced by breath support, which was actually pretty late. It was in my undergrad studies. And then I find out, oh, there's a whole technique to this. So
putting air in your back was one of the weirdest things that anybody ever introduced me to, that you have like kind of little pockets of air in like your sort of tenderloins here or something like this. It's bizarre. I never would have
right,
thought that unless somebody showed that to me.
right. And then your rib extension, like who would ever focus on your ribs when you're
Right.
singing? So those are like small things to think about, which are really important and really big if you want to have proper technique and proper support. Another kind of misconception that I think people have nowadays, and I can talk a little bit of experience because I kind of had this too, is sound versus technique. So I had this specific sound when I went into my undergrads, and it was a very like twang kind of sound, very like and I really focused everything on here. So I restrained every muscle here in my throat. And, if you do that for a long time, you're going to lose your voice. So that's actually kind of what happened. I had a little growth on my vocal cords, and it wasn't big enough for it to be surgically removed, but I needed to get speech therapy. I needed to do a lot of techniques. That was almost a good half year of my vocal performance studies that I couldn't sing. So, and then I had to do more theory, which was fun in a way, but different. So those are things like people tend to forget. Like if you have a specific sound and it's not supported by proper technique, doesn't make it right. It also doesn't mean that you're going to lose your sound if you do know the proper technique. So when I figured out like twang is created here, but not with all the muscles here. So how it actually works, like the funnel in your in your throat, you push the epiglottis closer to the cartilages to make it narrower, which will create a very sharp kind of louder sound. So knowing that now, I'm like, okay, yes, that makes so much sense. And also it opens up a lot of different doors because there's so many different colors and sounds you can create. So instead of me thinking of, I'm going to lose my sound, I don't want to do this, it's like, no, wait, I got so many more possibilities and so many more options to choose from. So yeah, I feel like that's a really big misconception.
So a lot of these sort of technical, physiological things you're discussing, when in your experience as both a student and an instructor, would you say that this is kind of a chicken and egg question. Do people, let's say, arrive at artistic conclusions more commonly through learning technique and then seeing how to apply it? Or do they learn it more from, I want to make this sound that I heard on this recording and then figuring out how to do it? Which one maybe occurs more often or which is more beneficial? What are your thoughts on that?
Ooh, I feel like that differs. Because once again, if you want to sound like something, then it means that you have curiosity. If that isn't there, then you're not going to learn it either. So, hmm, that's a tough question. I feel like
It's what
they
they pay
happen
me the big
both
bucks to
ways.
do, ask the tough questions. So here I am.
So I feel like they happen both ways. Yeah, I mean the chicken and the egg were both there, right?
Hmm. Fair enough. So, a lot of you've applied a lot of your sort of vocal prowess to, writing tunes and, performing on your own compositions, whether it's for your artist project,
Mhm.
or if it's in collaboration with other songwriters, producers for applied media like TV shows and things like this. So you've done a lot of writing and have been recognized for it. Uh, I guess maybe talk about your sort of philosophy on writing tunes, first for yourself, and then maybe how that differs for, let's say, writing for a Netflix show. Do you, let's say, think about different things? Are different parameters of music important to you? Does it change whether or not it's a solo work or if you're collaborating with somebody? Maybe talk through some of your overarching philosophies on kind of writing songs in 2020.
Songwriting is for me being and feeling completely free. Now, when you do write for projects like a Netflix show or like a TV show or something like that, you do get parameters, and you kind of have to because it's not your own project in a sense. You got to respect that. And but this could be. I think this kind of differs per writer. For some people, it gets more easy if you have to write for other people. For some people, it's easier to write for themselves. Um, Ooh, for me, it would be I like both. I like having parameters because it already gives a theme, it already gives an emotion, it already gives a direction of where it needs to go to. So it's almost like you're filling in the blanks. When it's for your own, um, all those parameters are gone unless you put them for yourself. So I feel like that would help me out if I get a writer's block or something like that. I would make those parameters because again, this will give you a direction of where to go to. And I would start writing with either a theme or a hook or a melody and elaborate on that. So I always like to make a mind map. And so I put the word that's most connected to the song. I would put that in the middle and I would branch out literally everything that pops into mind. And even if they are not directly connected to it, I would still write all of it down because in the end, when you have this huge paper with all of the words written down, you'll see a couple connections. And even though they weren't directly connected, like I said earlier, they will get connected to somebody else or some other word that's in there. So those are songwriting tools that would help me out if I'm writing for my own.
Last week, we talked with another faculty member, Kevin Shima, who's one of our songwriting and production faculty members, and we got a bit heady at points. He had talked about a quote from one of our favorite composers, Igor Stravinsky, who wrote The
Mm-hmm.
Rite of Spring. If you know Fantasia, if you've ever seen this, you see the opening sequence with the dinosaurs and the mountains and the volcanoes and stuff. That's The Rite of Spring. One of these sort of timeless orchestral classics sort of thing. And he's one of these respected people. He wrote about this idea of the abyss of freedom, which I think now is like the most metal thing that I've ever heard. So this might be a concept album incoming, so stay tuned.
Right.
But this
Everybody
idea
take
of
notes.
right. So this idea of constraint, parameter breeding creativity is,
Mm-hmm.
when you could do everything, you can get lost and overwhelmed. But forcing yourself to do, like you mentioned, these sort of mind maps and sort of
Mm-hmm.
associative kind of exercises is an important part of the process. What are some maybe specific parameters you've placed on yourself to realize your artist project? So when it could just be everything that you want to do, are there some sort of things that you say, I will always make sure I do this in my tunes, or I will never do this? Are there any sort of like kind of hard and fast, like third rails that you apply to your artist project, or is it just anything goes?
I try to. I try to have a freedom still, but I do try to stay within the neo soul and pop genre. I try not to do a rock tune unless it's for a project or a production or something like that. But for my own artist project, I try to stay within those genres. You can make everything that you want, but if you release it like that and have no release plan behind it or no strategy or campaign, people will get lost. They'll be like, I don't know what this artist is about. And, you know, we do like to put people in boxes, as hateful as I have to say it, but we are doing that because it's easier. You know, it's easier to sell, it's easier to market, it's easier to campaign in that sense. So I think that'll be the only restriction I put on myself, to kind of stay in that soul pop type.
Yeah, a recent EP that I had heard, maybe in the last year or so, which ended up becoming a lecture for me, was we listened to Lil Nas X's EP right after Old Town Road came out, and it was like this 7-track thing. You expect like the two remixes of Old Town Road to be on there, of course, but then there were these like Travis Barker, like pop rock tunes, and I was just like, where did this come from? And like, I'm into it, like it's cool. But on the
Right.
same EP as some of these other like trap based tunes, so for me as a listener, I was, kind of confused, maybe, pleasantly so, but it was sort of derailing. So I guess we'll get more into sort of like release strategies, kind of, being an artist in 2020 in the middle of a pandemic and all that kind of stuff. We'll come to that, later on in the discussion, but let's
Yeah.
put a pin in that idea. For your own artist project, you've spoken with me about some of your globe-trotting experiences and how, you've lived in various parts of the world, and, how that's kind of influenced your person and your music and things like this. You speak many languages. So what does, like, how does that, let's say, impact or influence the kind of music you make? Are there, let's say, maybe even, do you have like maybe even a specific instance of, let's say, like an idiom in one language, becoming the crux of a song in another, or something like this? Any sort of stuff you've kind of taken from your sort of cultural amalgamation?
You know what's funny? I feel like when I grow up, I always wanted to learn about the world and learn about different cultures and different languages, and yeah, like you said, I've traveled a lot and I've experienced that a lot, and that also makes me think in English most of the time, even when I was younger. I came from a very musical household, and my parents took in international students, so their English was always kind of like the main language flowing around. That I would dream in English, and then I would talk in English. And if you consciously notice that, it's kind of funny because that's not my mother language. My mother language is Dutch. So I think that makes being here in LA very important, because it feels more like a home base to me than the Netherlands does, for example. So I think in lyric writing, I don't know if that actually helped me or not help me at all, because in Dutch we phrase certain things different. It's the other way around from the English language. So I kind of make funny mistakes. And if you say, for example, did I say that right? In Dutch, if you would translate that literally, it would be say I that right. So it's the other way around. So sometimes I still make mistakes in that, and in English writing, obviously that isn't really helpful. I guess it would help for certain sayings or metaphors, because sayings are different in English and Dutch. So you can make some interesting sayings or metaphors in that sense of being super creative, some word plays or something like that.
Do you incorporate other languages into your music at all, or is that just something that is just separate from your music making?
Yeah, not at all. I think the Dutch language is very harsh. I think there are only a few people in the Netherlands that can make that language sound beautiful. It's very similar to German, and German is also very harsh, except we have the very strong "g" sound.
Right.
And I feel like singing that, I don't know. It just doesn't. I don't really like it. Also, when I would present myself and do gigs back in the Netherlands, I'd always present myself in English. I've tried it once in Dutch, and I think there's still a video somewhere. And I would because I'm thinking in English, I would translate it literally into Dutch, which make the Dutch sentence not correct anymore. So I kind of make myself look like a fool in there. So I was like, nope, not doing that again.
As a show of solidarity, my old producing partner, hopefully will watch this someday, and he was a Parisian guy, and so we were working together at a record label out here in LA, and I'd always wanted to kind of learn a language, and I said, well, I've got this French guy, he sits next to me in the studio 9 hours a day, so well, here we go, allons-y. Uh,
Yeah.
so so I started learning French, Rosetta Stone and reading the paper and watching TV shows and stuff like this. And,
Yeah.
of course, I'd be introduced to his French friends, and I'm trying to comport myself in French and, mind my T's and all this stuff and forget all the vowels that you don't pronounce and stuff like this. And, it's a different experience. If for those watching, if you've never like had to put yourself in another language and kind of humble yourself to interact with people in a language that's not your first language, I highly encourage you to give it a shot, because it can teach you a lot about just, human connection and sort of, if the words don't come right, you still find a way to kind of get your point across, and you can still kind of connect with people. It's a powerful experience. So I encourage all of you to embark on that linguistic roller coaster that I've done. So as someone who has done a lot of work in these other media for these shows and things like this, and even in your solo project, it seems, you often have said in interviews that you like to work with other people.
Oh,
You
yes.
gain a lot from the experience. So maybe comment on sort of the virtues of collaboration. What are some specific things that you've learned in, let's say, Project X that you've brought to Project Y? How has collaboration kind of shaped your music making?
Collaboration is everything, and I think every musician has to know this. Where would you be without collaboration? That would be my question. You learn so much from other people, and I feel like if you work with people that you look up to that are maybe more advanced in certain things, would it be songwriting, would it be singing, or playing an instrument, like that will always bring you up to a next level. So that's something that I think I will always try to do for the rest of my life, to work with people that are basically better than me, because it just pushes me to become better too. I've had the opportunity to work with some great musicians and artists and songwriters and film composers, and um, I took I've learned a lot from them, and that wouldn't be possible if that didn't happen. Now, if you're working in a band, um, it gets a little bit different because the dynamic will be different, and it also is different if you are working in a collaborative band or if you're working as a solo artist that has a live band. Um, I think you kind of have to see it as if you're on a boat, and if you are if it's your solo project, you are steering that boat, and you decide which direction that will go to. But it doesn't mean that you can't hear the advices from all the people and the crew around you, because that is so important to not crash into a iceberg and the boat will sink. It's it's very important. But if you are a collaborative thing, then somebody has to take over that steering wheel, and you got to be okay with that, because if not, it'll clash, and then you got band politics.
We've all been there, as I have, as I'm sure you have. So
Yeah,
how do
because
you
you
how do
you
you
played in a band as well, right?
Yeah, I played in a few. For right when I got my master's, I did basically what every, person who gets a degree goes through, is like, okay, what now? And taking basically everything.
Mm-hmm.
I had a teaching gig. I had a little studio. I would write arrangements for strange things. Like I remember I wrote some a cappella choir arrangements for like the Anti-Defamation League Summit was one gig that I got. for like a Egyptian exhibit opening at like New York Museum, like some weird stuff. Like
Very
you can't
cool.
even make that up. You know, we did
Hmm.
like walk like an Egyptian in like a pyramid. Like it was
Oh,
bizarre.
wow.
Like what else do you have to figure it out? Okay, they paid me,
Yeah.
great. So you know, but I was playing in a lot of groups. And so eventually one of them clicked, you know, and made sense. And we started touring and started recording seriously, you know, getting on little local radio and stuff like this, you know, playing the festival circuit, you know, in the kind of like, at the time, it was a very Black Keys driven world and we were just living in it sort of thing. So of course we had the kind of rootsy kind of stuff and you know, we were trying to ride the coattails a little bit, you know, maybe doing something a tiny bit different, you know, kind of cage the elephant sort of stuff, maybe with a little bit more synth stuff happening in it. A little bit more Baroque counterpoint, you know, thanks to
Right.
me, sort
Yeah.
of thing. You know, but yeah, I mean, it was four guys in a van, you know,
Hmm.
and that that can wear on you really fast, you know.
I
So
can imagine.
when you're on mile 300 on I-90 and all you've seen is corn for 4 hours, and you're like, okay, you know, there's nothing that I want to listen to on the radio. Everybody stinks, you know. You've been in the car for 8 hours, you know. So you're operating on that baseline, period.
Yeah.
You know, your tensions are high, you
Hmm.
know, sanity is fraying, you know. So then you actually have to go to pre-production for your recording session in 2 weeks and you have to get all your ducks in a row and write your tunes and produce them and stuff like this so that you can go in
Right.
and like lay them down. And so you're spending 14 hours in the rehearsal space, you know, making this happen and eating, you know, crappy gas station food and stuff like this,
Hmm.
you know. And so yeah, I've gone through
Yeah, your fair share.
the band politicking, but I'm curious of kind of like how you've navigated sort of maybe thorny artistic situations where maybe you have very strong opinions on how uh, what direction to take artistically, and maybe it runs counter to you know another you know strong willed person in your group. You know, what are some sort of tactics you've used? You know, how do you navigate that?
I feel like if it's your own artist project, your solo project, you can everyone is carrying out your name. Then you have to be really straightforward from the beginning, from the get go. You know, it would be your vision, and I feel like you would have to be the leader in that, and have the end say, because in the end it's your name and it's your face and your profile, and that just has to be very clear. Now, if you do bump into band members or producers that are not at that level, and like I said, it doesn't mean that this is my say and nobody else can say anything about it. Like, no, not at all. Like, you're the reason that you're working together is because you want to be collaborative. You want to have that creative input from other people and give back to them, as well. So that's just a very fine line. But if you have that very straightforward from the get-go of saying, like, you know, this is how it's going to happen, and I respect everybody's opinion, I value everybody's opinion, but in the end I will have a final say. If you have that very clear from day one, then everybody knows where they're at, and I think that's super important if you work as a solo artist. Then I
What
would,
about some of these more sort of collaborative sort of things where like there's multiple kind of creative entities in the project? What sort of stuff have you encountered there?
I've worked with a couple of songwriters where they have a strong opinion about something. Like, no, it has to be this kind of phrase, or it has to be this melody, and you kind of have to weigh it off if it's worth the discussion or not. In the end, you got to think about what's best for the product, what's best for the song. So if you are working for a production and you're working with different songwriters, I think somebody's breaking down the house here. You have to be open for change. You know, I think that's very important. If you're going to be very stubborn, then you're not collaborative.
Yeah, makes sense. So that has that sort of situation extended itself to some of your work on things like Netflix shows? You know, are you getting a lot of notes from you know production leads and stuff like this? And you know, I guess how do you kind of swallow your pride and take the medicine, so to speak? You know, have you had a lot of that happen in the process?
Not really, to be honest, because I'm very fortunate in the sense that I've been on these projects, and that goes way back to my undergrads. When I was in my second year of my undergrads, um, apart from jazz and pop department, that was a film composing department. So I got connected with a film composer since the second year, and we started working on different projects, and he started producing some songs for me as well. So we really kind of leveled and vibed in that sense, and networking is everything. So he worked for a film composer that has been here in LA for a while. She's also from Germany originally, and they've been working for multiple movies together. And that is kind of how that linked up of me working on some of their projects and some of their movies. So in the end, it all comes down to having a network. And at the same time, network is not just going to get you anywhere, but you have to work hard for it as well. Because if I didn't work hard back then, obviously we would never be connected. So I feel like those two go hand in hand.
The people that you're seeking out for your network, uh, should they be, like you said, you worked a lot with a film composer.
Mm-hmm.
Should they be somebody who kind of complements your skill set? Should they be people who are doing the same thing in your industry and have kind of the sage advice? What kinds of people should you seek out?
In a sense, yeah, because I yeah, that is a film composer, but I know he has a lot of love for pop music, so that's kind of how we got connected. Um, but now through him I met Anne, and Anne is a film composer, and we don't have the same style, and that's okay as long as we know where to go to or what is being asked. So in a sense, yes, but not always.
Okay.
It will help you, but it can be okay if you are not connected in a sense. It can even maybe unlock a lot of things that you never thought about. So that's the fun part.
So, going back to kind of artist identity stuff, like you're saying, you do something very different than a lot of your collaborators do, and you kind of find a way to use your respective skill sets to arrive at, a whole that's greater than the sum of its parts. So when you're talking maybe about getting to that point where you're kind of developing your skill set and identifying your sort of, what you could offer in the industry, to get to the point where you're ready to network, I guess is a phase of development that I kind of want to talk about. Because you
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of people who may be watching, who, let's say, maybe have been writing songs. They've been performing, they've been getting their craft up. They maybe got some stuff on SoundCloud, things like this. But that's not, let's say, a business. If you
Mm-hmm.
want to treat music as a business and you want to make it your livelihood. So how do you get to the point professionally? Let's say I have my songs. I like kind of where I'm at artistically. How do you take that next step to start reaching out to people? How do you let's say bottle up and package what it is that you offer artistically, and then make those four overtures to wow, music pun. There we go. How do you make those overtures to potential people in the industry that can further your goals?
Right. So I think that it's always important to think of the bigger picture. So if you are an independent artist and you have your music recorded and you don't know what to do next, then the next thing is not just to release it and get it out there, and because as fast as you put it out there, as fast as nobody's going to hear it anymore. Same with an album; it will be a waste of the music, basically. So I feel like making a plan and making goals. What do you want to achieve? Do you want to is your goal to maybe have, I don't know, 10,000 streams on Spotify? And think about all of the things that you need to do to be able to get there. Or is it to be more known on social media and get more followers through there? Like, for example, those are all things you need to gotta kind of plan out. And then it comes down to wearing more hats than just one, because you're not just a singer anymore. You're not just a recording artist anymore. You got to think about graphic design. You got to think about marketing. You got to think about promotion. Spotify playlists. How do I get in contact with all these people? And obviously, well, we don't have shows anymore now, but bookings for live shows, release plan parties and monetizing this at the same time. Like there's so much more to it than just I'm a singer and I record a song and here's a song. You know, you got to find your audience. You got to find a way for people to find you and be able to listen to your music and connect to that.
So maybe let's break down a couple of those scenarios that you mentioned, right? If I want to get to 10,000 streams on Spotify, uh, what do I do? You know, obviously I have to register the song with Spotify, probably with a performing rights organization, right? So you can start getting royalties and things like this. What are some other steps that go into, because you've recently had this, you know, something that you released maybe a week or so ago, you know, recently reached that cross that threshold. So
Right.
what does that take? What do you have to do?
It's a lot of emailing. So you have PR
Everyone's favorite.
companies.
That's
If
basically what
you
my half my gig is now is email.
exactly, you're just emailing. Um, you have if you have the money, then for sure invest in a PR company, and it'll give you a little bit less of a burden. If you do not have that amount, artists like me, I literally research everything. So there's these great platforms, say the Indie Bible. Indie Bible provides you with a lot of context and a lot of resources for a small amount of money. So that would be one version to have knowledge about, okay, how does playlisting work? For example, like you have editorial playlists, which you can only pitch to right before, like 7 days before the release of the song. But that's only for one song. And chances, it goes with metadata, and chances are kind of small that you're just going to get it like that. They're looking at Spotify algorithms, see what peaks up. And so that would be a smaller option. What your best bet would then be is find third-party playlisters. Mainly the big Spotify playlists are owned by labels. So if you're not signed, there's no way in hell you're going to get on that. So focus on smaller third-party playlisters, and they all have social media. You can look them up. There's a great website called Chartmetric, for example. And if you go up there and you put the playlist in there, then you can see who's curating that playlist. You can reach out to them personally, do a little pitch. Don't be like too pitchy, but just be like, hey, I'm this type of person, and I released this new song. I listened to your Spotify playlist, and I think it might be a fit because blah, 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 blah. So make sure that you do vocalize that you know about their Spotify playlist and not just send out a random message. So that could help. So that's a lot of finding out who these people are, a lot of emailing, a lot of messaging, and sometimes you get some response back, and those responses could be nice. Another way is there are a couple of free websites for playlists. I think dailyplaylists.com is one. You have like 25 playlists you can pitch it to directly for every 2 weeks, which is kind of nice. There are some big playlists in there too. And then you have platforms like Submit Hub. And Submit Hub is a paid credit type of thing. So you pay for a certain amount of credit. Every curator or every blogger or whatever's on there has a certain amount of credits that they ask for, and then you can pitch it out to them. So that's kind of pay to play, unfortunately, but that's out there. That's a way to do it.
And then the other side of the coin, the social media elephant in the room, right? Of course, everybody would love to go viral and have that be the sort of first step in their process, and that just you cut the line, and you're straight there. But of course, for the rest of us, we have to kind of build momentum, perhaps up to a point where we can go viral. So, is going viral even the strategy, or is it, let's say, baby steps? Growing your brand incrementally. What are some things that you've done in your own sort of social media presence to sort of expand your reach, target new audiences, find new listeners? What are some things that you would recommend to people who are trying to use things like Instagram and TikTok to sort of take the next step in their careers?
I think one thing not to do, start off with that. One thing not to do is buying followers. If you,
Right.
because people see through that, and I think the most people you're trying to target, you're trying to find your real fans out there, right? Not some bot. So if you have a ratio of, I don't know, 15,000 followers, but when you post something, you only get 20 or 30 likes on it, like people can see through that. And if I'm looking at an artist and I see that, I'll be like, oh, that's a phony. It's not interesting anymore. So I feel like the more genuine you are as an artist, the better fan base you'll build. And that doesn't go overnight also, like unless you have like a huge hit all of a sudden happening, but chances are not that big either. So I feel like it is stronger to build a focused fan base, and if that goes slower, hey, so be it. Those are the people that are going to really stick to you.
In which case, to take those steps and kind of inch forward, is it a question of, let's say, strategically using hashtags? Is it just, kind of sharing your stuff on multiple cross-platform posting? What are maybe a couple bullet point strategies?
Hashtags for sure. I put them in a comment right after you post it. So sometimes you see like those bullet points,
Dot
and
dot
then
dot.
yeah, and then you have like I think you can only do 30 hashtags maybe. So maybe be around 20, 21, 22 that are you can do a little research on that. There are some hashtags that are really big, some hashtags that are a little smaller. If they're smaller, put some in there too, because chances are bigger people are going to see that than if it gets lost in a huge hashtags and there are a lot of people following that, you're not going to pop up that fast. So make a combination of both of them. I think what really helped me in the last couple of months, I'd say, is to have an ongoing Instagram advertisement. I did for the song Worth It, which I released back in April. I did a Facebook advertisement. So Facebook and Spotify are connected, right? The Facebook owns, Instagram. Facebook owns Instagram. And so they have this Facebook ads manager. And at the same time, you can also do a Instagram boost for a post. So those are two different things. I tried both of them out. I felt like it was a lot of work to do it through the Facebook ads manager, but then at the same time, you can really customize it and you can really see what people are going to see. So if you have a song just released to get more listeners, you can do like a small phrase of saying like, my new single, blah, 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 check it out here. And then when they click on the link, it goes directly to the song on Spotify. So you can monetize that, which is kind of great with Facebook. For the latest song, Madams, I've done an Instagram boost, and I have that as an ongoing thing. So you gotta budget this, because marketing is not free. It's never free.
Tell me
So
about it.
yeah, so you gotta, as an independent artist, you gotta plan this out. Also the budget, because it is not cheap being an artist. First of all, you spend so much money on a recording, you spend so much money in the studio, you spend so much money on time with musicians, and then mixing, then mastering. That itself almost makes you a pretty broke person. And then you still gotta spend money on marketing to find your fans and get heard.
So I want to kind of open up the floor to anybody who has questions here. And if you have questions, just feel free to type them in the chat, and we'll answer them for you. So as you're doing that, I want to kind of do some shameless promotion here. So, Kia, as we mentioned, is the newest member of our songwriting and voice faculty here. If you are interested in, let's say, some programs here, if you're a songwriter or a singer and you're looking to kind of take your training to the next level, we have all kinds of offerings for you. If you're looking for the kind of college experience, we have, an 18-month associate degree program. Do we need a bass player? Yeah, come on through. You work with me. So we have an 18-month associate degree program. We have a 12-month certificate program, 6-month apprentice program for performers. They stack. So let's say you want to just try it out. You start with the 6 month, then you can kind of tack on, 6 months at a time. You can go pretty far. We have a 12-month certificate in songwriting and music production program. By the end of it, you basically have written, produced, recorded, mixed, mastered your own EP. That's the goal of the program. So you'll leave the program with an artifact that you can take with you and start, using all these strategies that Kia's been talking about to promote it. We also, if you're looking to maybe just take a bite of the apple, not ready to kind of dive full in, but you still want to learn something, we have these brand new 7-week programs that are offered online in the evenings. If you're just starting out, we have kind of beginner courses in songwriting, production, music theory, which is important. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Vocal performance. We have what's called an emerging artist program for people who maybe are a little bit further down the road. They want to get some feedback on their tunes, improve their songwriting chops a bit, learn about the music industry, how that works. And you get a one-on-one sort of artist development session with one of our faculty members. So if any of this interests you, if you want to work with people like Kia or me or any of our other faculty, I encourage you to check out ccmla.edu. Has information on programs, faculty bios, all these different pieces of information that are relevant to you. Simple application that's online, you can reference right there. It's got everything you need, all the information. So we encourage you to check it out. Let's see here. What's the best part of being an artist and soul writer? So I guess it's a question for you, Kia. What do you think?
Best part is to be able to share your music. Best part is to be able to connect to new people. As a part of the singer-songwriter, the best part is to collaborate with people, I'd say.
So we have a question about how important is music theory and how often do you use it? I have a biased response, but I'll let you go first.
Music theory is very important. I feel like people always look down to it, and I feel like for a lot of singers that I have seen, it's not the most fun part because it's hard. And taking that away, like if you are a singer and you have great intuition, your intuition only goes so far. And I feel like music theory, you have to see it as a tool to bring you further. So not as an obstacle in the road. Like that's not how you should see it. If I use it, not always, but I definitely use it.
And so I guess we have a couple minutes here. So maybe a couple just rapid fire questions here. Person that you're most excited about artistically in music right now?
Ooh.
Again, hard questions. They pay me to do this.
You know how to ask them. I feel like her.
Her, yeah, great.
Yeah. I think she has a lot of knowledge. She is a great performer. She probably knows the theory pretty well. She plays multiple instruments and she writes amazing songs. It makes me really excited. And she's such a young and happy person. Thought about this whole concept before of being anonymous. That's why the name, that's the sunglasses. So I feel like she's killing it. Mad respect for that. Yeah.
Got performances on the Grammys and stuff like this. If you could collaborate songwriting, if you can co-write with anybody, living or dead, who would you write with?
Living, Stevie Wonder.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Okay. Let's see here. Favorite gig you've played in Los Angeles?
Oh, The Village. We've played there. It's funny because Alfie, who just made a joke about needing a bass, he's the live bass player. And we did a show in The Village. This is in Studio City. They did a R&B night. It was their first edition, and we just had so much fun. It's not a big venue. It's actually, I don't think it's a normal venue like the Viper Room or like
Something on a strip, Key
Human,
Club.
for example. Like, yeah. So they built a little stage there, and the vibe was just so much fun. Yeah.
So, guys, I want to thank you all for tuning in. Where I'm getting the doomsday clock countdown on the live stream. So, Kia Knoester, CCM vocal faculty, songwriting faculty. Again, if you want to work with Kia, people like me, any of our other instructors, check us out, ccmla.edu. It's got all the information on our programs. And again, we're going to be doing these live streams every Wednesday with different guests. Some people will be recurring. Spoiler, Kia, I'll be contacting you again to come on through. So I hope to see you all on Wednesdays, and ciao, y'all. Thanks.
Bye.